The San Palma, a refrigerator ship from Argentina carrying a consignment of prime frozen beef, has arrived at the London docks. As the meat is being unloaded to a cold storage shed, a dock worker notices something strange. One of the sacks doesn't feel right. He is instructed to open it. As he tears at the cloth, the face of an icy human corpse is revealed.
Dead of Winter. Written by Eric Pace, produced by Leonard White, and directed by Don Lever.
At the public mortuary, John Steed reads the Shipping Gazette as he waits for fellow Avenger David Keel, who he has called away from his morning surgery. Keel arrives, upset at Steed's sense of timing. Steed explains that there is a corpse that he wants him to examine as a matter of urgency and leads him into the mortuary. Inside, they meet Dr. Brennan, a police surgeon who Keel remembers from his university days. The pleasantries are brief, however, as they soon come to the body on the slab, the man found at the docks the previous night. Brennan explains that an autopsy will not be possible for at least 10 hours, as the body is still 10 degrees below freezing. He cannot tell the time of death, but Steed has a theory. If I may hazard a guess, I'd put it at 2 weeks and 5 days ago, the time of departure of the San Palma from Argentina, says Steed, indicating his copy of the Shipping Gazette. Steed leaves Keel with Brennan and arranges to meet later at the surgery. As he departs, a young man, Willy, silently follows him. Later, with Keel out delivering a baby, Steed has the surgery to himself. He meets there with Inez, a fashionably dressed South American, and shows her a photograph of the dead man. He asks if she is certain of the man's identity. "Quite sure," Inez replies firmly. "I had him under close watch in Buenos Aires until 4 weeks ago when he disappeared. We knew he was trying to get to Europe, but who could expect him to leave the country in that way? And dead," exclaims the South American. Inez explains that Webster's, the meat importer, have had an office in Buenos Aires for 3 years. Steed adds that Webster's real name is in fact Weber, and that someone called Dr. King has made a suspicious number of flights to and from South America of late. Steed believes Dr. King is in reality a man called Kreutzer, a brilliant doctor who worked for the Nazis in the war. Keel arrives and learns that the corpse in the mortuary is that of Hans Gerhard Schneider, a Nazi war criminal living in exile in Argentina. Schneider was to set up a paramilitary organization in Europe for the neo-Nazi group Phoenix, which would return the Nazis to power, but the plan had failed. Schneider did not survive the journey to Europe. Steed offers to take Inez to the airport from where she is to fly home. Later on, Willy meets with Weber at his doc's office. Weber is angry with Willy for allowing Schneider to be taken to the public mortuary. He was to collect the body, but had been held up in traffic. Suddenly, Weber notices someone suspicious outside. He grabs his field glasses and takes a look. It is Steed. Outside, the dock workers are moving carcasses of meat across the wharf to the shed. Weber approaches one of them, Harry, who explains that Steed is a customs man. Weber doubts this and confronts Steed, introducing himself as the importer of the meat. "And last night's, was that yours as well?" asks Steed archly. "You mean the body?" asks Weber. Why anyone should have selected our consignment to dump a body is a complete mystery. Steed ascertains from Weber that the carcasses usually weigh about 140 pounds. 10 stone, about the weight of a man, Steed comments. With Weber, Steed questions Harry, the dock's foreman. Harry turns out to be evasive and unhelpful. Steed decides to call it a day, but advises that he may return with further questions. That evening, Dr. Brennan calls Keel and suggests that the corpse is now sufficiently thawed for an autopsy to be performed. Keel tells Brennan he will bring Steed and meet him at the mortuary. When Keel and Steed arrive, Dr. Brennan is nowhere to be seen. Keel calls out for him, but there is no reply. Steed goes over to the corpse on the slab and pulls back the shroud. The original corpse is gone, but in its place is Brennan, and he is dead. Later, Steed meets Keel in a cocktail bar. Steed has learned that another Phoenix man is leaving Argentina and will arrive in London on the 25th aboard the SS Whitney. He has also had a minor Phoenix member, Dr. Fisher, detained at the airport and held in custody on a trumped-up smuggling charge. Steed suggests that Keel can take his place as Fisher and Weber have never met in person. Keel has a fortnight to learn about Phoenix before entering the fray. 2 weeks later, at Webster's, Villy is talking to Weber's secretary, Margarita. She is worried that they are both in too deep. They are interrupted by Weber, who suggests Margarita find some work to do. Keel enters, posing as Dr. Fisher, a Phoenix member sent by mutual friends. Weber is at first highly skeptical, but when Keel mentions Kreutzer's name, he is convinced. "We have been advised of your arrival," states Weber, "and understood that you would be staying at the surgery of a Dr. Keel. Is that not correct?" Keel momentarily worries that he's been rumbled, but quickly recovers his wits. "Oh yes, I was able to arrange a little practice over here. I thought it would allay suspicion," says Keel, thinking fast. Back at the surgery, Carol humours Ted, the father of the twins delivered by Keel. She stifles a laugh as he tells her they are losing their hair. Keel and Steed arrive shortly afterwards. Steed reveals that he had supplied Fisher's cover story to Webster, and this angers Keel, who argues he should have been warned. Steed deflects the criticism. As Steed leaves, Carol warns Keel that someone in the waiting room is asking to see a Dr. Fisher. It is Villy who tells Keel he is to be taken to meet Kreutzer. At the docks, the cargo from the SS Whitney has arrived. Steed is in attendance supervising the operation, and this is something that makes Harry, the dock foreman, very unhappy. He threatens a walkout. Weber observes the altercation and decides to intervene. Just after he arrives, there is a commotion. The dockers have found a dead body in number 2 hold. It is Inez, the Argentine agent. Meanwhile, Villy has taken Keel to Kreutzer's Harley Street surgery. Inside, a body lays on an operating table, covered by a sheet. Keel enters and Kreutzer beckons him over, drawing back the sheet to reveal Schneider's body. "May I introduce our future leader, Hans-Gerhard Schneider," proclaims Kreutzer. On the slab, the body starts to move. To Keel's astonishment, Schneider's eyes spring open and he sits up. Back in his office, Weber is being interrogated by Steed. How can he explain the corpses found in 2 consecutive consignments? Weber suggests there must be a gang operating at the Argentine docks, but Steed is unconvinced. Weber confesses that the tragic events have contributed to his decision to close down operations. There is not enough money in it these days. Steed seizes upon this. "No, I should have thought that 300,000 Deutschmarks recently transferred into your account would have helped out a bit," Steed says pointedly. "For a customs officer," says Weber, "your investigations have been very widespread, Mr. Steed." He suggests that the bodies may have been dumped on the ships as a warning to anyone who inquires too deeply. After Steed has left, Weber calls Kreutzer to warn him about Steed. Kreutzer demands that Steed is dealt with along with Keel. "I want them both on that boat tonight," intones Kreutzer. Kreutzer returns to the surgery to find Villy and Schneider toasting the resurrection. Schneider snaps at Kreutzer, who tells him he must rest. He is not yet fully recovered from his suspended animation. Kreutzer takes Keel into another room and reveals that the game is up. He knows who Keel is. Steed goes to the surgery to find Keel, only to be told by Carol that he left with a patient who had been asking for a Dr. Fisher. Steed is concerned that he has no leads. However, help comes from an unexpected source. Margarita calls in at the surgery, desperate to save Villy, her boyfriend. She is not sure where Kreutzer is now, but knows that he will be taking Keel to the docks in the evening. At Harley Street, Kreutzer has had Keel restrained on the operating table. He has prepared a hypodermic containing the cell freezing solution and threatens to administer it to Keel. He indulges Keel's curiosity and reveals Phoenix's plan is to incite a world war leading to nuclear combat. All Phoenix members are to be frozen and held in storage in a secure location in Argentina while the war rages around them. Keel points out that atomic weapons are fairly indiscriminate. Kreutzer has an answer. "A man frozen beneath the threshold of life is as good as dead. Atomic radiation cannot harm him, and when it subsides, he will awaken to a world free of all opposition," gloats Kreutzer. But Kreutzer's preparations for this audacious plan are incomplete, and Kiel's arrival has presented the perfect opportunity. For all experiments, one needs a guinea pig, Kreutzer confides to Kiel. I shall subject you to a controlled experiment lasting 1 month, during which you will be subjected to every known radiation hazard. Now relax, Dr. Kiel, he advises. Meanwhile, Steed and Margarita take a taxi to the docks. She says that Kiel is to be transported to Argentina on the SS Whitney. She implores Steed to save Willy, who she reveals was Kreutzer's first experimental subject for the freezing process. At the Harley Street practice, Kiel has been injected and is unconscious. Schneider infuriates Willy by telling him that the story Willy had been told by his mother was a lie. Willy's father did not die a heroic death in the war. He was shot in the back for cowardice in the face of the enemy. Kreutzer remonstrates with Schneider. It was foolish to unnecessarily anger the youth. Steed and Margarita arrive at Weber's office at the docks. Weber appears gun in hand. Margarita has struck a deal with him and has led Steed into a trap. Weber sticks the gun in Steed's back. They are going to the cold storage shed. Kreutzer, Schneider and Willy arrive at the cold store with Kiel's body. Weber arrives shortly afterwards and motions for Steed to go into the cold store. Kreutzer suddenly senses something is wrong. The temperature in the room is near normal, when it should be freezing. Someone has turned on the heating. Suddenly, a docker's hook reaches out and knocks the gun from Weber's hand. It is Harry, the dock's foreman. He calls out, and a gang of dockers mob the villains. Schneider draws a gun and aims it at Kiel's helpless form. One move from any of you, your friend dies, warns Schneider. Keep them covered, Willy. Willy draws his Luger and swings it slowly around the group. He brings it to rest, aiming at Schneider, and shoots. That was for lying about my father, spits Willy, as Schneider falls dead to the floor. Willy trains his weapon on Kreutzer and Weber. He will be free of them at last. Your freedom won't do you much good, Willy, reveals Kreutzer. Remember, you were my first experiment. When I examined you later, I found the living tissues were not being replaced. You will not live another 6 months. Willy is shocked and lets his gun arm drop. Steed jumps into action and grabs the weapon. He brings it to Kreutzer's throat and instructs the dockers to restrain the villains. He promises them a large bonus and asks for an ambulance to be called for Kiel. Much later, at the surgery, under Steed's watchful eye, Carroll tends to Kiel, who sits in an armchair, his legs wrapped in a blanket. He has been brought back to consciousness and displays no serious ill effects, but he has caught a chill. Steed reveals that there is no such man as Dr. Fisher.
Next toast, please.
Somehow, and that was his best solution. I thought it was too much of a coincidence, says Kiel, somewhat perturbed. Steed wags a finger at his friend. Now, if you're not careful, you'll get a temperature, old man, he says, with a playful smile.